Hey, this is Hunter Dawkins. This is my Good Kings, Bad Kings infographic. I really enjoy this book. It sheds some light how disabilities are misunderstood and how they're perceived amongst others that are not always necessarily educated in the disabilities. The first question was, how do schools perceive students with disabilities? I feel as if they are perceived as incapable in most situations due to their disability. You see them with the IEP and their if they have a physical disability, you see that and the structures that are supposed to be in place for them to do better, but as well, they're often seen as, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do this, and you tread real lightly because you don't want to make them feel as if they are incapable, but by doing that, you make them feel incapable because it doesn't allow them the chance to at least try. Um, Schools also perceive that they act out due to their disability. A lot of times, it's not that they are acting out due to their disability. It's the fact that they feel like they're being ignored. Because a lot of times the students with disabilities are sequestered in their own little area and not really ever seen or heard from, and it's like, oh, don't look over there, and that's really sad to think that's how our education system has gotten. And so these students, they or the schools perceive that the students just act out because of a disability, so they want to hide them, and they're not. They just want to be loved and they want to give attention. They want to try. Another perception from the school side is that they struggle due to their disability. And I'm gonna be honest with you, one of my best students that I've ever taught in the 9 years I've been teaching had a disability, had an IEP, had all of that. Was smart as a whip though, because he wanted to try, and as long as we let him try, he was good. And he understood the material once we kind of realized what his strengths were, and a lot of times after like the first or second month, we didn't have to really put any accommodations in place because he wanted to do it like everybody else. He wanted to be like everybody else, and that'll be a theme that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Um, when in reality, all they want to be is seen as equal and not as someone that is less than everyone else. Because a lot of times we want to put these accommodations and put these students and treat these students as if, oh, well, we want to put them in a ball, and we don't want anything to happen to them, and we don't want them to be bullied, and we don't want them to fail. When in reality, they want to try, they want to go in, and they want to have a chance to be like everybody else. Because in their minds, and if I could, I feel like it's like they're out and they see everybody else playing and everybody else getting to do what they want to do, and they're like, well, I'm just kind of sitting here, I can't do that, and I feel like it really hurts them. Mentally, because it really it tears down their self-esteem when we should be trying to build that up. The next question: how are institutionalized settings dangerous for young adults with disabilities? Um, they have some people with adults with disabilities. They have needs that are required to be met. In these institutional settings, they don't always necessarily meet those needs because they are basically doing the bare minimum in order to sometimes honestly keep their funding, and they're like they don't worry about what all the needs are needed to be met in order for these adults to be taken care of and live a healthy life. Their disabilities are often misunderstood. I go back to the one about the acting out due to the disability. A lot of times these adults, their disability is not the attitude; it's the lack of understanding and lack of care and lack of love and attention that they are getting that causes them to act out in order to get that attention and try to get that love and so on and so forth. And honestly, there's limited professionals available to assist individuals with disabilities. I feel like just like school teachers, there's a bunch of school teachers that are leaving the profession due to overwork and low pay, as well as I feel like there's a lot of mental health professionals that are weaning themselves out of the profession because the lack of funding, the lack of care, those types of things. And so there's limited professionals available, and that's really sad because these adults need to be loved, if not more than everybody else. Could this also be seen as an involuntary incarceration? I'm simple. I don't think that it could be seen as involuntary incarceration, including due to the fact that there is documentation that they cannot discern from right and wrong. I believe that is on a case by case basis. If they can discern from right and wrong, then they know right and wrong. Just because they have that disability doesn't mean that they get a get out of jail for free card. And I don't mean go to jail, but that's just the saying. But that they shouldn't be institutionalized, because if they have a disability and they go out and they know right from wrong, and it's documented they know right from wrong, they go out and commit a crime, they should be held accountable for it. They should not be able to use that disability as a crutch. And that's just my personal opinion. I feel like there's many people out there that don't believe in that. They say, "Oh, they have a disability. They should not be incarcerated." Because how do you know if they know for right and wrong? And I get that. But if there's documentation saying that they know right and wrong, then they should be held accountable for that. The last one: how do the intersectional practices of racism, sexism, classism, and ableism shape the lives of these young people with disabilities? Are they being exploited? Why? Why or not? How do schools also reproduce these practices? So that's a loaded question, so it's going to be a little bit of a long part. They're powerless to change in many of these situations, because they're often overlooked or seen as, oh, well, did we believe that? They have a disability. They're already kind of put behind the eight ball with that kind of situation. They're sheltered early on so that when they become adults and if they are able to live on their own, they're unknowingly taken advantage of. They don't know, oh, that's not how it's supposed to be, because somebody's always done it for me. So I worry about that with adults with disabilities. I believe that those with intellectual disabilities are in danger of being exploited because some of them do not have the mental capabilities to see where they are being mistreated. So those that are out on their own and able to live on their own, sometimes they don't have the mental capabilities. They can live a basic life, but they don't have those mental capabilities to see where they're being mistreated, left to not worried about, and so on, and so, not cared for. And they want to just always say, oh, well, want to see the best in people. And I've known people like this in my life that they just want to always, that have disabilities, that they see the best in everybody. And they don't say, well, so-and-so's not doing right by me, and so on and so forth. Students with disabilities in schools are already considered behind the eight ball. I mean, when you add them in being a person of color, a female, a low poverty student, it adds another stigma to them that they are disabled, and that they are whatever, female, low poverty student, person of color. So they will for sure struggle now because they got a disability and they have this minority stigma. And I think that's just that's terrible to see and terrible to be that way, because these students, like I said at the very beginning, they just want to be a part of it. They want to learn. They want to do what everybody else does. They want to be seen as normal. And then not all schools are set up for disabilities, thus making it hard for them to access certain parts of the school and services that other students freely enjoy. You take for instance, you have a library that's 2-story, and I had one growing up in middle school, and they had one level when you walked in. You have they call it the pit, where the other books were. Well, think about it as this way: they have the elevator there to get the students with disabilities, such as being paralyzed, not being able to walk from the waist down, so on and so forth. Where you're in class and you're waiting on them, the rest of the able-bodied class walks up to the ramp, and then they're standing there waiting, looking at the kid in the wheelchair, waiting for the elevator to bring him up. That adds a stigma. That child's like, I'm sorry, y'all are waiting on me. They feel like a burden, and they really shouldn't. And I feel like you should have, instead of having the elevator, instead of having stairs, have a ramp. Have a ramp that goes up there. That way the student doesn't feel like they're holding everybody back. I feel like that's a big thing with students with disabilities. They feel like they're a burden and that they're holding people back. And I feel like that should not be that way. I feel like they should be uplifted and said, you're a part of us. You're a part of one of us. You're one of the class. I feel like they should just be loved. And really and truly, that's what it comes down to. Because being a teacher, you see a lot of these things. I had a student a couple years ago who, read on a pre-K reading level in ninth grade. And it was really sad because he sat there and wanted to, and he looked at me and said, "Coach, I can't read." And it really broke my heart because I felt like he had just been passed along. He's on pre-K reading level in ninth grade. That's rough for me. And so that's where I'm at with this, with students with disabilities and adults with disabilities. Like I said, I enjoyed this book, really eye opening, and I look forward to hearing from you all about y'all's experiences with